When my husband left that evening, the house felt unusually quiet. He had mentioned earlier that he needed to step out for a couple of hours, and I didn't think much of it. The sun was setting, casting long, warm streaks of gold across the living room floor. I remember standing near the window, lost in my own thoughts, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I hesitated, wondering who could be visiting at that hour. When I opened the door, I saw my son's friend, Daniel, standing there with an awkward smile. He looked slightly nervous, shifting his weight from one foot to another as he greeted me politely. He said he'd come to return a book my son had lent him, but my son wasn't home. I invited him inside instead of letting him stand outside in the cold evening breeze. He stepped in gently, looking around the house with that familiar wide-eyed curiosity teenagers often have. I noticed how much he had changed over the last few months, taller, more confident, though still carrying that innocent shyness he never seemed to outgrow. As he handed me the book, I could see that something else was on his mind. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. He kept glancing toward the living room, then at me, like he wanted to say something but couldn't bring himself to speak. I asked him if everything was okay, and he nodded, but the way his voice trembled slightly told another story. We sat in the living room, and I offered him a glass of water. The silence between us grew heavier with every passing second, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. He kept thanking me repeatedly for letting him stay for a few minutes, almost as if he needed the company more than he wanted to admit. He talked about school, about how stressed he had been lately, and how sometimes he just needed a place to clear his head, somewhere quiet, somewhere calm. As he spoke, I could see how tired he looked. It reminded me of how life can overwhelm young people, even when they don't show it openly. For a moment, he fell silent, staring at the floor. Then he said something I didn't expect. He confessed that he always felt safe here, that the atmosphere in my home made him feel at peace. I was taken aback by his honesty, but I could see his sincerity. There was no hidden intention, no inappropriate tone, just a young person admitting that he needed a moment to breathe. I reassured him gently, telling him that it was okay and that everyone needs somewhere they can relax without pressure. His shoulders loosened, and his whole posture shifted from tense to relieved. He looked at me with gratitude so strong that I could feel the emotion behind it. The room grew quiet again, but this time the silence wasn't heavy, it was calming. The clock ticked softly in the background, and the faint sound of cars passing by outside blended with the warm glow of the evening lights. He asked me how I managed to stay so composed, so patient, even when life treated me unfairly. I smiled softly, telling him that growing older teaches you to find strength in the small things, to breathe even when the world feels overwhelming. He listened to every word with an intensity that surprised me. Somewhere in the middle of our conversation, a sudden power outage dimmed the entire house. Darkness filled the room except for the soft orange light from a candle I kept on the table. The atmosphere changed instantly, not in a dramatic way, but in a strangely intimate one. Not romantic, but emotionally raw and honest. He seemed embarrassed by how startled he was, and I laughed gently, easing the tension. The candlelight softened everything, the room, the moment, even the heaviness he had brought with him. It felt like time had slowed down around us. He thanked me again, this time with a tone that carried more meaning than simple gratitude. He said that talking to me made him feel understood, that sometimes adults didn't realize how much their presence meant to someone younger struggling with silent battles. Before he left, he paused at the door and looked at me with a rare, genuine smile. Not a nervous one. Not a confused one. A warm, thankful one. He said that he felt better, lighter, and that he hadn't expected the evening to turn into such a meaningful conversation. I watched him walk down the path toward the gate, the cool night air wrapping around him as he waved a final goodbye. When my husband returned later, the house felt normal again, but that quiet moment, lit only by candlelight, stayed in my mind. Not because anything inappropriate happened, but because sometimes the most memorable moments are the unexpected ones, the ones that show how human connection can calm the storms we don't even talk about. And even now, when I think about that evening, I feel a strange mix of calm and reflection. It wasn't what the world might assume. It wasn't something dramatic or scandalous. It was simply one of those rare, gentle moments where two people, different in age but similar in emotion, shared a quiet space and understood each other without saying too much. It was a moment that stayed with me long after the candle had burned out.